Last time we talked about the uncertainty in the global picture, the conflict, the oil shock, the tariffs, and how all of that touches the Canadian marketplace. Perhaps a lot more dampened than other parts of the world, but real nonetheless. The understanding that global context matters, but building a proper understanding of this market actually means that you, as a buyer, a seller, investor, or a homeowner, is only achieved by looking at the actual GTA numbers. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. And I want to start with something that I believe affects more people watching this video than almost anything else going on in the market right now. Something that thousands of GTA homeowners are navigating quietly and mostly alone. "2026 is the year of what economists are calling the mortgage cliff. Here's what that means in plain English. Back in 2021, mortgage rates were historic lows, lows that by any long-term standard were almost unbelievably cheap. People locked a 5-year fixed mortgage and felt like they had done the smart thing. And at the time they had. Those 5-year terms are now coming up for renewal. And the people renewing today are facing two compounding problems at the same exact time. First, their home is worth less today than it was 5 years ago, which means they can't simply refinance their way out of this situation because the equity is not there the way it used to be. And second, the rate that they are renewing at is dramatically higher than what they are locked in at during 2021. The result, according to CIBC's economist Benjamin Tao, approximately 5% of all mortgages in Canada are facing a monthly payment increase of 40% or more this year alone. 40% or more every single month. Let's put this in perspective. If your mortgage payment is $4,000 today, you are looking at something closer to $5,600 at renewal. That is $1,600 a month. $19,000 a year coming out of the same household budget that is already absorbing higher grocery bills, higher gas prices, and a cost of living that is not let up. That is a real and serious financial impact on real families. And if this is your situation, I want you to know something. You are not alone, and you are not out of options. Here's what's happening behind the scenes that headlines are not really telling you about. The banks are seeing this coming, and they are responding quietly and proactively before it becomes a crisis. Hang on with me here. Here's a data point that tells a real story. 30 to 60-day mortgage delinquencies, meaning people who are 1 or 2 months behind on their payments, are rising. That tells the stress is real. People are genuinely stretched. But 60 to 90-day delinquencies, the ones that typically precede a default, those are not rising. Why? Because banks are intervening before people fall into the cliff. They are extending amortization periods 40 years, 45 years, and in some cases even 50 years to bring monthly payments down to a manageable level. This is not 2008. The American mortgage crisis was a system that was structurally designed to fail. What we are seeing in Canada is a system under real stress, but one that is actively working to absorb the stress before it becomes a default wave. The system is holding, but people inside it are feeling every bit of the pressure. And for buyers watching this, here is why this matters to you directly. Some of these homeowners facing renewals will run the numbers and decide the extended amortization still doesn't work, and they will choose to sell. That creates a quiet, steady trickle of additional supply entering the market over the next 6 to 12 months. Supply that does not show up loudly in the data, but that gives you, a buyer, real negotiation room in pockets you might not expect. Now let's talk about what the March data is actually showing in the GTA. And I want to start with one of the most clarifying charts I have seen in a very long time. This data comes from CIBC, and what it shows is a relationship between the size of the condo unit and how much its price have fallen since the post-COVID peak. It is almost a perfect straight line. The smaller the unit, the bigger the correction. Micro units, those studio apartments under 300 square feet that developers market heavily a few years ago as investment opportunities and entry-level play, they have lost up to 25% of their value from the peak. And according to Benjamin Tal, they could fall another 5 to 10% from here. There's essentially no appetite for micro units right now. Investors have stepped back and users do not want them. And because so many were purchased as investment vehicles rather than principal homes, the emotional cushion that keeps people from selling is very thin. The average GTA condo price overall has now hit a 7-year low, sitting at $620,000, down 9% from a year ago. But here's another side of the story. This is what makes the picture genuinely interesting. Condo sales under $500,000 more than doubled year over year. Not grew, they doubled, up 116%. That is not investor activity. That is real people with real plans deciding that $500,000 is a number that works in their life. End users demand forming a real floor. And at a national level, Canada's benchmark home price has now converged with its pre-COVID long-term trend line. The trajectory established between 2016 and 2019, before all of this madness, after years of trading dramatically above that line, we have corrected back exactly where the long-run data line said prices should be. That is a rare, historically meaningful alignment, and almost no one is talking about it. And this is where the picture gets very specific, and where knowing the difference between segments is worth the real money. Not all of the GTA is moving in the same direction. The average number hides an enormous amount of variation underneath. Detached homes were up 5% year over year in March. The strongest growth came from the Peel region and the York region, both up 18%. That is genuine, sustained demand in areas offering more space and more value per square foot than the core city. But here's a number that caught my attention the most. Detached homes in Toronto East, Scarborough, East York, and the whole corridor currently sit at 2.9 months of inventory. A balanced market is between 4 and 6. Below 4 generally means sellers have the upper hand, and 2.9 means that buyers looking for a detached home in Toronto East are already competing. That pocket of the market is not waiting for a broader recovery, it's already tightening. For townhomes, semis, and row houses across the GTA, the market is sitting at 3.3 months of supply. That is the closest thing to a genuinely balanced and fair market you will find anywhere in the region right now. Both sides have reasonably leveraged, and yet it is a segment that gets the least media attention. If you have been considering that type of home, a semi or town or row house in a solid neighborhood, you are in a market that is rational and moving. That is rarer than it sounds. And for low-rise homes priced under $800,000, sales were up 45% year over year. Every price segment under $1 million has grown. The market is telling you clearly where the energy is. Entry-level and accessible mid-range, not at the top.